In the previous clip, you refactored the code in the main window SAML file so that this part of the application is in its own grid panel that can be easily extracted into a user control. Now in this clip, let's create that user control. So let's stop the application. When you scroll down in the main window, you can see now here this new grid that you have created in the previous clip with these 3 column definitions. It contains the customer list grid that represents the navigation, and it contains this stack panel with the customer details. Now let's go to the Solution Explorer and let's right-click the project and let's select from the context menu Add New Folder. I call the new folder View. Now let's right-click this folder and let's select from the context menu Add User Control. In this case, I call the user control Customers View. Let's add it to the project. The Customers View represents a specific view in our application. It is not like the header control, only a little part. Later in this course, we will also add another view to the application so that you can switch between customers and products. Now let's go again to the main window SAML file and let's scroll a bit up in this file. I collapse here this grid and now I cut this grid from the main window SAML file. Let's go to the Customers View SAML file and let's replace here this grid with the grid that I just cut from the main window SAML file. You don't have to set grid.row to 2 on this grid. Instead, you have to set it on the Customers View user control when you use it in the main window SAML file. So now let's go back to the main window SAML file and here at this place, let's write here Customers View. I press Escape to close IntelliSense and I close this and I press Ctrl dot and you can see Visual Studio wants to add an XML namespace for the .NET namespace wiredbraincoffee.customersapp.view. Let's hit enter to do that. Now you see we have here that view prefix. When you scroll up to the root element, you can see on the root element that Visual Studio created an XML namespace with this view prefix that maps to this .NET namespace. Now let's scroll down again to the place where the Customers View is used, and here on this one, let's set the attached grid.row property to 2. Also here, the comment is not needed anymore. Also on the status bar, I remove the comment as it is obvious that this is a status bar. Now let's also scroll up to the menu and let's remove this comment as well, as it is obvious here that this is the main menu. Now look at this clear main window SAML file. We have now these 4 row definitions on the root grid. Then there is the menu, the header control, the Customers View control and the status bar. But now, when you try to build the solution, you see there are some errors. For example here, the name Customer List Grid does not exist in the current context. This comes from the main window SAML.cs file. So let's go to the main window SAML.cs file and let's look what is wrong in that file. As you can see, here you have the button move navigation click event handler and you can see the customer list grid variable is underlined in red because that grid is no more defined in the main window SAML file. We just moved it to the Customers View user control. Actually, you should move this whole event handler to the Customers View control. So I cut it from here and now let's go to the Solution Explorer and let's go to the code behind file of the Customers View. I press Ctrl dot on the usings to remove the unnecessary usings. I also remove here this comment. And now let's paste the event handler into this Customers View class. As you can see, here the customer list grid is found because it is defined in the Customers View SAML file. I put the cursor on the event arcs and I press Ctrl dot to add a using directive for system Windows. Now you have the event handler in this Customers View class, and when you look into the Customers View SAML file, you can actually see that the click event of this button is connected to that event handler. Now the application should work. Let's run it, and it comes up. let's try to move the navigation and everything works as before. But now, this whole part here is in its own user control. This makes your application easier to maintain, and the code in the main Windows SAML file is now super readable. In the next clip, I want to tell you a bit more about the XML namespaces that you see on a root element in SAML.